We're live. Siftach. Thank you, Hashem, for making me well enough to do the shiur because we couldn't skip Parshat Lech Lecha. It's pivotal to the Jewish nation. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in person and live. And I would like to dedicate today's shiur to the refuah shlema of Yom Tov Yosef ben Chava. He should have only good health and all of Am Yisrael. Okay, Parshat Lech Lecha. Very, very pivotal. We ended off at Noach the end of Noach, where we learned the descendants of Shem all the way down to Terach, who fathered fathered Avraham and his brothers. And it's interesting that the Torah divides the life of Avraham, the first Jew, in the beginning of his life being in Parshat Noach, the end of Parshat Noach, and then suddenly we pick up with the words Lech Lecha, right, which is the command of Hashem for Noach to leave his land and go to the land that Hashem will show him, right? So this is actually the first, here is really where our story as a Jewish nation begins, right? Even if anything, right, with the beginning of when we start Bereshis, although Mefarshim ask, why are we even learning this, right? This is not, Torah is supposed to be lessons for our life, the mitzvos, right? What is the creation of the world, or what happened to Noach, who wasn't even a Jew, right? The Bnei Noach, or the non-Jews, have to do with that. So everything we learned was setting the stage all the way up to this point where this is where the beginning of the Jewish nation starts, right? We start the Jewish nation from here, from Abraham, and this is the first conversation that Hashem has with the very first Jew, right? The very first time Hashem speaks to Avram is the beginning of Lech Lecha. The very first conversation that Hashem has with any Jew, because Avram is the first Jew to exist, is in history. So this is a very historical moment, and therefore the words that are in the first conversation between Hashem and the very first Jew are going to be dissected and tell us so much about who we are as a Jewish nation, what makes us separate, what is unique about this first directive of Hashem to the very first Jew, right? So it's going to be very, very pivotal to understand these words and teach us so many valuable messages. So there's hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of messages from this first verse of the very first communication between Hashem and the very first Jew, Avraham, or then known as Avram, named by his father Avram, right? And so let's learn the pasuk. First it says, let's read. Vayomer Hashem al Avram, and Hashem said to Avram, Lech Lecha, leave, Lech Lecha, go for yourself, me'artzecha, from your land, mi'moladitecha, from your birthplace, mi'beis avicha, and from your father's house. Where? He doesn't tell him where. He says, to the land that I'll show you. I'm not telling you where yet, right? You can't put any destination in your GPS. I'm just going to have to just go and let me lead you, similar to what the Jewish people in the desert, right? Where they just went and traveled on Hashem's word. Then that's really the very first word. So we're going to learn a lot of lessons from these words, the first communication. First of all, if we want to just look backwards at the first few parshas, we learn that why were the parshas divided and how they were. We learned that Bereshit was speaking about the act of God, mostly the creation of God's part of creating the world. Noach was speaking about the work of man, like how the world acted in this world. And then in Lech Lecha we have the combination of both, right? We have we have God and man working together in communicating and working together hand in hand, side by side, right? Because it was people working, but they weren't able to receive the messages from Hashem in Noach, right? And that's why there was a destruction of the world. And Hashem says, let's start again. And in order for it to work, it can't just be me creating or you working on your own. It has to be a fusion of both of them together. Okay, so we have a lot of messages. Let's learn. I have 7 of my favorite lessons, of at least 7, from these words, from this pasuk, Lech Lecha, me'artzecha v'latzecha. If you want to follow along, it's the first pasuk in Parshat Lech Lecha. Okay, first of all, the question asked by the Zohar is, on what merit, the Zohar says, on what merit did Hashem pick Avram to be the first Jew? Is Hashem giving Avram the directive and saying, go eventually to Canaan and I'll give you that land, right? We don't have any of Avram's upbringing in the Torah. We fast forward, do you know how old he is in here? He is 75 years old, if I'm not mistaken, when this happened. Is that possible? Yeah. So he's 75 years old when this happened. So what happened from here to 75 that made him being chosen by Hashem to be the one to father his nation and to receive Eretz Yisrael, to receive the land, right? We have nothing in his history. Even for Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was picked as leader, we had his childhood, how he was born, the life he had. We had a lot of clues how he was as a shepherd, what he did to protect his people, right? We had so many clues to help us understand who he was and why Hashem chose him to be a leader. Even for Noach, it says that he was good in his generation, etc. For Avram, it's like suddenly Hashem is saying to Avram, who is this guy, right? We just learned in last week's Parsha, obviously we have many, many stories by Mefarshim that tell us really, in the psukim, we have a couple of psukim about Avram. It doesn't say anything about his life story, but there's hints in the pasuk. For example, it says that they left Ur Kasdim, which means the light of the furnace, which tells us the backstory that he was thrown into the furnace by Nimrod, because he broke his father's idols. Because his father came to complain to Nimrod and said that my son is breaking all my idols, and then we had that backstory. But in the psukim themselves, we don't have much. So is that why Hashem picked him? Because he broke his father's idols, or because he survived the fiery furnace? But even in the psukim, why wasn't the Torah, giving it to us straight up? These are such valuable lessons to know about the founder of the Jewish nation, right? Why is it only hinted to? So what does the Zohar say? The Zohar answers and says that what made Avraham, what do we have in the text? What do we know about Avram? He says that everyone in Avram's generation was hard-hearted and stuck in their ways and not willing to change, but Avraham was fluid. He says everyone was tough and Avram was fluid. He was open to questioning everything. He was open to restarting his entire life, to questioning everything, to moving from where he was. And we do see that Avram kept moving and journeying and moving, and we see that he was the one who questioned and challenged everything that his fathers and everyone before him gave. So that's why he was picked to be a Jew, because of Lech Lecha. Because Lech Lecha means he was someone who was willing at the moment to pick up their life and start again, because he was willing to question everything that he's done until now. He wasn't so stuck and saying, well, this is how I've done things my entire life. I have to do it this way. This is the way my father's done it. This is the way my grandfather's done it, right? This is the way my great-grandfather's done it, so I have to continue doing it this way. Because he was fluid and willing to question everything, that's why he was picked. That's what the Zohar says. But still we want to understand, why does the story start here? Why Lech Lecha do we begin with this part of his life? Why don't we begin the story in the psukim way earlier, from when he was 3 years old and recognized Hashem as was the first one to recognize that idols are not real, that idols are not created as idols, these pieces of stone are not real, that there's something greater that must have created the world. Why don't we start there? Wouldn't that be so valuable to us? So we actually learn something so profound in our life. And it's on these words in the pasuk where Hashem, everything on Avram's journey was so valuable, and everything that he was so powerful until now, but until now he reached and perfected the highest level he can achieve through his own efforts, from his own life, from his own efforts. And here Hashem is saying, you've reached the highest. You're 75 years old. You've reached the maximum that you could ever achieve on your own, right? You've discovered the unity of God. You've discovered the creator of the world. You've spread it to others. You've even defied and went all Mesiras Nefesh, right? You've done everything. You've created followers. You have a tent of Achnas Orchim, right? You bring people into the fold. But you have so much more you can achieve, but you can't do it from yourself. So Hashem said to Avram, Lech Lecha, which we learn that these words are a message for every one of us every single day of our lives. Go to yourself. Go for yourself. Leave, and what he's saying is, leave the level that you can reach on your own, and go El Aretz Asher Ereka. Leave your space, the places that you've achieved on your own, and now go to the place that I can show you. Because when you go with Hashem's help, and when you go on the divine command of Hashem, and you're going to the level that I can take you to, it's even way further than the levels that you can ever achieve on your own. So you've achieved the mastery of, which is what Parshat Lech was about, which was the work of man, right? Man perfecting the world. And now, when you go with me on the word of Hashem, you can achieve way beyond than you could ever imagine, way beyond any level that's even capable of a human man reaching on his own. So that is why the journey begins here, because it's really teaching us what we are as a Jewish nation, what Hashem intended for the entire world, that we have. That it's not that it's supposed to be Hashem bringing us, like creating the world from above to below, taking us out of Mitzrayim, just with his efforts. And it's not supposed to be only our efforts either. Without the real magic recipe is when both of us work together, when we have Hashem working from above, being supernatural above all limitations of the world, but us working within the confines of the world as well. And bringing those two together, we can achieve the total human perfection, which is human perfection if when it's just Hashem is not perfect without our involvement. And it's actually amazing that we see that specifically in the bris milah, which is the mitzvah that Avram has in this week's parsha, where Avram is 99 years old and Hashem tells him to get a bris, because that's where we see that perfect completion, that Hashem can create us only so perfect, and we need to finish that act. That Hashem is saying that I can't even reach perfection without you either, right? Because there's only a certain level of perfection that I can do, but that's not with your involvement, and that's not real cooperation. That's not real working together, right? If I do everything for you, what's the beauty in that? It's like, look, Mom, I brought home this project. Well, your teacher made that for you. Clearly, you can't write, right? You can't do that. That's not possible. That's not perfection. Perfection is our effort, our toil, our heart, and our soul, even if it's not seemingly godly, perfectly godly. So we see in this week's parsha so many messages that teach us the ultimate message of what it means to be a Jewish person, is that we want to use our own efforts as as ungodly as they are, but also to understand and open ourselves up to that no matter how perfect a human being is, they can reach so much further if they can let go and succumb to going on the journey that Hashem shows them. That even though they might not know where it's going, even if it's not like in their timeline of like, this is where I want to get to, if I can succumb to where Hashem takes me, I can go way further than I could ever even imagine on my own. So Hashem can't reach perfection without the completion of the, I know, just I was saying the bris milah, just to explain, Hashem says, I create a bright, there's a lot of places in the Gemara that discusses this, and stories where we learn that we complete Hashem's creation, that Hashem makes the world complete to a certain extent, and we complete the perfection of man by circumcising the person to fulfill that act. And that's the true cooperation and work that we have. So we see, El Eretz Asher Eka, I want you to leave your Eretz that you've gotten to until now and go to the land, and now I want you to take you to the next level, to the land where I will show you. And that's why we begin with this pasuk in Avram's life. Okay, that's message number 2. Beyond what you can reach on your own. And message number 3 is one of my favorites. There's, Hashem could have just said, Lech Lecha, El Eretz Asher Eka, right? Leave where you are, get up, travel, and go to the place I'll show you. But yet Hashem says, or leave your land and go to the place I'll show you. But there's 3 words that say seemingly the same thing, right? Leave Artzecha, leave your land, leave Moladetecha, your birthplace, and leave Beis Avicha, your father's place, right? Why say things so many times? What else do we see something similar to this in the Torah? It's actually in next week's Parsha. We actually see the word Lech Lecha again. Lech or Lech Lecha? Lech Lecha again we see next week's Parsha by Akedah Yitzchak, where he says Lech Lecha. He says go to the mountain to. So I'm pretty sure it says those words again. And there again it says Kach es bincha, take your son, as Yechidcha, your only son, as bincha, as Yechidcha, asher hafta, the one that you love, as Yitzchak. Right? Again, it says over and over again. And in both of these cases, Rashi says that he said it many times to give him schar for each and every, to give him more reward. So he's saying, I want you to leave to express it, that you're leaving reward because you're leaving the place you were born, you're leaving the place that you know, and you're leaving your father's house. I'm giving you more reward for each and every word. Also, I want you to take your son, I want you to take your only son. There's a lot of reasons for both of those. But there's an even deeper message for specifically saying those 3 words, that Chassidus takes beyond. So first of all, we want to establish that Lech Lecha is not just a message of Hashem. In Pshat, in the Psukim, it practically means Hashem telling Avram to journey and leave Haran, where they were, not where he was born, but where they were journeying, anyway, where they had stopped there with his father after his brother Haran died. Haran, his brother Haran died in Haran. That's his brother and Avram and Nahor and Haran were the 3 brothers, and. Yeah, they left Haran. Okay, I got it. And that's where his father died. So Haran and Haran. So it's not just a literal, it's also Hashem telling Avram to leave, but even more than that, this is a directive that continues and reverberates within every single one of us in our journey, every single day, in every single person's journey, and collectively and individually. So what is this message? Lech Lecha, go to yourself, right? To go to, challenging us to leave ourselves to get to our higher self. That leave your space that you are in now, leave everything that you know now to get to Lecha, to get to your core self, to get to your, welcome by the way, I heard that you're visiting, welcome. To get to your highest self. And how do we journey to our highest self? How, as Hashem is telling to Avram, I want you to go, Lech Lecha, go to yourself, right? What do you mean go to yourself? I want you to achieve your highest self. I want you to get down to your core self, to the highest level of yourself, first of all, by following the place where to get to a level that I will show you, beyond what you can take yourself. And how will you achieve that? Through leaving. In order to do that, first you have to be able to leave behind 3 levels. You have to be able to leave behind Artzecha, Moladetecha, and Beis Avicha. So if we want to be able to achieve our Lecha, to get to the highest self that we can, to journey to our highest self, we have to be able to leave 3 things behind. And we have to be able to get past Moladetecha, Beis Avicha, Artzecha, Moladetecha, and Beis Avicha. So there's a lot of interpretations. I'll tell you the first one. The first one says that Artzecha is the Artzecha, Moladetecha together make up our nature and our nurture. Moladetecha are the things we're born with. It's the things that are our nature, because Moladetecha, the place you were born, all of the characteristics that we're born with. And Artzecha are the things that you might not have been born with, but the things you developed and that you absorbed from your environment, from the land that you were born into, right? And we know that as humans, we're made up of our nature and our nurture. We're not sure which one more, right? There's a lot of studies to try and figure out, are we more nurture or are we more nature? What makes us up? What makes a person who they are? Are we more influenced by our nature and our nurture? But we know that we're made up of a combination of both our nature and our nurture. And in order to get to our highest self, we have to be willing to leave behind and grow beyond our not only our nature, but also our nurture. What does that mean? We're born with traits, we're born with tendencies, we're born with limitations, with natural tendencies. And we have to be, just like Abraham was born to be naturally chesed, and he was the epitome of kindness and of chesed in the world. In order for Avram to achieve his highest self, he has to be able to leave behind just being tied to chesed. He has to be able to incorporate gevura and boundaries. If we are naturally always giving and always kind, we need to incorporate boundaries. We have to be able to leave our nature and be able to leave behind the need to always be loved, the need to always be kind and give to ourselves all the time and give to others. We need to be able to say no sometimes. We need to be able to hold back. We need to be able to put the boundaries on that. And that's just one example of a natural tendency. If we're born naturally lazy, if we're born naturally angry, we have to be able to overcome all of the nature that we're born with in order to achieve our highest self. And on the next level, so that's one. That's just a little bit of it. We'll hopefully talk about it more, where we have to incorporate chesed and gvura, etc. But we see this even from Avraham Avinu. And the next level is our environment. Not only do we have our natural tendencies, we also have artzacha, our nurturing. That we are born and we absorb things and they become so ingrained in us, where our environment tells us to value things, that tells us things that are important, that our house should be looking clean all the time, that we should have success, that we need to have a lot of followers, that we need to have money, that we need to have a degree, that we need to be successful, we need to be a professional, we need to have this and this and this to checklist in order to be valued in society. And there's so many of these things that are so ingrained in us that are so hard for us to leave behind. A society that values, in those times it was idols. Society that valued, everyone valued idols. And now our idols are followers, fame, recognition, attention, money, right? Money, looking good, appearances, so many things that we idolize in our society that we just take as a given, that I have to have these things in order to be valued in society. And we have to be able to question all of those and be able to pick up and leave it in an instant, be like, maybe question everything that society told me. Do I really need a degree? Do I really need to be professional? Do I really need to be this and this and this to have value? What is true value in life, right? And we have to be able to question all of that in order to achieve a higher self. So we have to be able to leave things we're born with. We have to be able to leave the values that society told us is important, right? Everything. We have to be able to stop everything and say, wait a minute, is this a true value, or is this something that I was ingrained in? And beyond that, we have to be able to leave. Once we do that, we also have to be able to leave Beis Avicha. Now in Chassidus, Beis Avicha practically means your father's house. In Chassidus, Av is intellect. Av is Chachma. And Hey is Bina, but together they are the fathers of intellect, like the parents. And we have to be able to leave even our intellect, because our intellect will rationalize why we do certain things. We have to be able to question our own intellect and realize our own blind spots and see that even our intellect will rationalize what we want to. Even if our mind tells us this makes sense, we have to be able to leave even those, even keeping mitzvahs because it makes sense, and even doing things because we have all the reasons in the world to rationalize why we're doing something. We have to be able to put aside our own reason and give into something much higher. Even if ration, and we see this in this week's Parsha as well, where intellect told Avraham Avinu that he couldn't have kids. He was 99 years old. No one at that age had kids. No one, Sarah's age, she was 90 years old, had children, right? No 9-year-old woman had children. This astrological future said they couldn't have children. You have to be able to leave aside all the intellectual things that you think and give into something higher in order to be able to leave lechacha, to be able to submit to going on the path Hashem will show us. That's one way to look at it. First of all, just that is life-changing. Be able to know that, to question everything, to challenge ourselves, to go beyond our nature, to challenge ourselves, to question our nurturing in our environment, to challenge ourselves, to go beyond even the things that are rational and make sense to us, to be able to challenge those things and say, wait a minute, there's a lot of things in the world that don't make sense, right? That we see. Hi to everyone who's watching. So that's one incredible way to look at lechacha, to achieve our highest self, to be able to leave our nature, the things we're born with in our nature, artzacha, the things in our environment, our nurturing, and Beis Avicha, even the things that make sense to us, that we can challenge those things. That do they, just because it makes sense, is there not something higher than I can achieve? Pause to ingest, to absorb. There's another beautiful interpretation in Chassidus about these three things that tells us something a little bit different, another way to look at it. Artzacha is synonymous with, first of all, Eretz, the land, represents our connection to materialism. Now we have to be able to loosen our connection with materialism and be able to objectify, to distance ourselves from materialism, even though we're here to elevate materialism and our entire world purpose is to elevate materialism. We have to distance ourselves from the attachment to
because as long as we're connected to our belongings, right? How can we go to the next step? How can Avram leave everything that he acquired, all his home that he built, if he's so attached to it and he feels like that's his everything? If we realize that ultimately our physical belongings don't define us, then we can let go a little bit more. And for me, like in trying to be more minimalist and letting go, it's really hard. It is really hard. I am so attached to so much garbage, physical garbage, because I become attached to like physical things that don't really define me or the person. I'm like, well, this thing, like this person who gave this to me, that person, well, doesn't care. And my relationship with that person is way beyond this item that they gave me 100 years ago. And they're going to want me to get rid of it if it's causing me stress and clutter, right? So we have a lot of attachment to physicality. So we have to get rid of, we have to be able to grow beyond our attachment to eretz, ratzon, to our desires. Eretz is also synonymous with the word ratzon in a few places in the Torah. And ratzon is our physical desires. Hi, Dora. We also need to grow beyond, let me find my notes, beyond, I love this one, moladetzecha. Within keeping mitzvos, in order to get to our highest self, we have to stop keeping mitzvos, moladetzecha, because we were born into it. We have to stop doing things because we were born into it. Keeping mitzvahs by rote, doing things habitually, and doing mitzvahs and Torah just habitually, doing things in that habitual way, having a relationship with Hashem just because I was born into this. For those of us who are born into it, we have to stop that, right? Just because Abraham was born into idol worship doesn't mean you have to continue it. So we have to be able to challenge the way that we do mitzvahs. Even someone who's religious and does mitzvahs, that's not a way to live, just to be in a relationship. Also in our love relationships, right? Don't just do it out of habit. Don't just do, connecting things out of habit. Do it because there's new meaning in it every day. Find the newness in it every single time. Find a fresh relationship with Hashem. Learn more, achieve more, aspire for more, and say, wait, why am I keeping Torah mitzvahs? Is it just because I was born into it? Like, that's not a reason to be in a relationship with Hashem because I was born into it. Let me have a fresh relationship with Hashem. Let me start again, get to know Hashem, right? We do every single Elul. Let me have my own personal relationship with Hashem. And then above that, we have Beis Avicha. Another way to look at Beis Avicha is also intellect, but also to know that I can be my intellectual limitations. A lot of times, we have to be able to grow beyond our intellectual limitations, that we hold ourselves in so many boxes intellectually, right? Because intellectually, this is the furthest limit physically I can reach. This is the furthest that naturally I can reach. We have to be able to go way beyond nature. And even if things that the Torah tells us like don't make sense to us, like chukim, we keep all the Torah, not only, although we're intellectual beings and we want to understand everything and everything does have a reason, we also have to realize we're submitting to something much higher and not just keeping Torah mitzvahs, even the things that make sense, because they make sense, but we're keeping Torah mitzvahs because they're God-given, because God created us and He knows what's best for us. And we have to be able to let go of our intellectual reasons for everything. And not everything has to make sense, not everything has to have a reason for everything. Hey, so that's another way to look at it, to another level of growth. So let's move on. So that's number 4, right? Number 4 is the ways that we can get to Lech Lecha through being able to let go of Artzecha, Moladetzecha, and Beis Avicha, to let go of all those levels, to put that behind us, and then we can go El Aretz Asher Eka. Okay. Now, what is Haaretz Asher Eka? It is the hardest thing in the world to just go somewhere and not know where you're going. Anyone who's made Aliyah, I made Aliyah not knowing where we're going to go, but at least we knew which country we were going to. We knew which city we're going to. We just didn't know what house we're going to, right? That is terrifying. I know a lot of people have done it. It's not recommended. It is terrifying, right? Not knowing where you're going. But imagine not even knowing which country you're going to or how far it is. You don't even know where you're going. Being on a plane and not knowing where you're going to end up right? You don't even know what you need to pack. It is terrifying. Being able, and that's in today's day and age where there's kiosks everywhere, there's gas stations, where we have credit cards. We're talking about in that time when he's traveling through deserts, who doesn't know how long he'll be without food. You have to have so much trust in that. This is so, what is the message for us in that? I heard a beautiful teaching from Yossi Jacobson on the Sfas Emes, on this verse, that this is what it means to live a life and partnership as a Jew in the hands of Hashem. That if you know where you're going, then you'll never get to your destination. If you're so stuck on where you're going, it says that there's 2 people who fail. There's people who don't have a destination, and people who are stuck on their destination. Or someone who doesn't have a plan and someone who's stuck on their plan. If we are so stuck on our destination and we're like, this is where I'm getting this degree and then I'm going to get this and then I'm going to get married, we're going to be miserable. We're going to fail because that's not how life works, right? Sometimes we don't get married when we wanted to get married. Sometimes we don't have the children when we're meant to. If we can go into the journey saying, I'm going in for the journey, and wherever Hashem takes me, that's where I'll go, and I'm just going to do my best to get along this journey with being my highest self, being my highest Lech Lecha self, then we are getting to the journey. But it's the hardest thing. And every day we need to wake up and say,
Hashem is going to take me wherever He's going to take me. And if I have my plan, and we should make plans. It doesn't mean we shouldn't make plans, right? We should have plans, but we should also know, at the same time, we should make plans. We should do our best to make the best plan within the situation that we are. We should also know that in a minute, everything could be up, and everything could be turned over in a second. And who knows this more than the Corona generation, than our COVID generation, where we all had the funniest, like we all had plans for everything, right? Going to college, going traveling, whatever it might have been, going to work. And then we're suddenly like, no, you're not going to work. You're not traveling. You're not going to college. You're not going to seminary. You're not going to visit your family. You're not going to have a wedding. You're going to have 2 people at your wedding. You're not going to invite any of these people. Who knows more than you? Does it mean you shouldn't plan a wedding? No, plan a wedding, but also know that you're only going to go al Arz Asher Eka. And it's interesting because Avram is like, so where does she go if Hashem's going to show him? How did Hashem show him? So he just went with his plan. He said, originally my father was taking us to Canaan. On the way, he ended up stopping in Haran and living there, and he died there. But I'm going to just keep going where I was planning to go originally, but also know, with the same knowledge, I'm going to go wherever I was originally planning, but also know 100% that I'm only going where Hashem is going to show me where to go. And ultimately, I'm just trying to find the place where Hashem is showing me to go. But if I know that destination, then I'm never going to get to that destination. Because if I'm set on going to a specific place, I'm never going to go to the place where Hashem actually intends for me. And it's like it's the hardest, most unusual thing to understand, that if I'm set on going to a specific place, I'm never going to get to the place that I'm actually meant to get to, because I'm going to keep on pushing against where Hashem is trying to bring me to. And it's like this paradox of life. Hashem can't show us the journey, because if He shows us the journey, then we miss the whole journey, because the whole intention is being able to let go and be in the process itself and be in the journey, and to be able to discover wherever we are without knowing what it is, we're to find meaning in the places along the way. This is really what this entire Parsha and the entire journey of the Jewish people to Mitzrayim and Galus is truly about. It's about being able to submit and say, I'm going to go ala Arz Asher Eka. I don't know where I'm going, and only Hashem knows His plan for me, and that's the beauty of it. Because if I knew Hashem's plan for me, then where is the struggle in that? Where is the work done? The work is where, if I could see the end goal right now, if I could see how it's all going to be good in the end, then there's no that work along the way, the uncovering, the unsurfacing of all of the emunah and the faith and what it takes out of me, all of that, we lose that. And we know when we know the end journey. So we really need to be in the dark about the end journey in order to uncover along the way all of that growth that we're going to get. Just going to take some tea. Another message from that is that we all have the fear of the unknown. And to be able to learn from Avram and to be empowered that Hashem said, Lech Lecha, to go wherever you're going to go, is very empowering. And it's something we need, every single human being needs, to be able to feel okay with going into the unknown. Hi, welcome. We need to be okay with going into the unknown, because being afraid of going to the unknown leaves a lot of people in a lot of bad situations. And because of that, because we are so afraid of going into something we don't know, we'd rather go into something familiar, that's painful, that's bad, that's abusive, that's toxic, than go into the unknown future that might be so beautiful and amazing. And that's what human beings choose over and over and over again, to stay in an abusive marriage, in an abusive relationship, rather than be in an unknown of not being in a relationship at all, because they don't know that pain, right? So we choose pain that's familiar to us rather than freedom that's unfamiliar to us. And that's why people who are free from prison are afraid of going out, because they're like, I don't know what that looks like. I've been in prison for 40 years. I know what that looks like. I've learned to live with that pain. But the pain of not knowing where I'm going to be, that's unfamiliar pain. I'm afraid of that pain. And we learned from Avram that the way to achieve your highest self, Lech Lecha, is being able to submit to not knowing. It is such a huge avoda. I'm saying it like it's easy. That's why Avram Avinu was chosen, because he was someone who was willing to say, I'm going to go to the unknown. And if we can every day say, the unknown might be fearful, but if I can't go into the unknown, right, that's the only way I'll achieve Lechad, my highest self. Lech Lecha, to go to my highest self, is if I'm able to take that leap. And I'm not going alone, I'm going with Hashem carrying me. And we really need to have emunah and faith in God, because if we don't have faith, going to the unknown is terrible. Or we need to have faith in the things that we value, faith in Hashem, that we can jump into this unknown and that we'll be okay. It takes sometimes people many years to leave a toxic, abusive relationship, because they're so used to the abuse and they learn to deal with that pain, to jump into the unknown of what would life look like without that person abusing them, without having that someone, even though it's abusive, is terrifying for them. And when they make that leap, they cry for all the years that they didn't make that leap. But sometimes it takes many years to build up that courage. What I'm saying is that no one should feel bad for not having the courage to leave a bad situation. But sometimes someone says it's the best thing that happened to them when they're fired from a job, right? That got fired from a job, even in the moment it was terrifying because they couldn't leave that job on their own, because it was secure, even though they were stuck in that job and they were stagnant. It was a toxic environment. But when they're fired, suddenly it gives them the opportunity to be in the unknown because they couldn't get there on their own. So sometimes we need to be gently pushed into the unknown and into something that's scary by Hashem. And sometimes it feels terrible for us if we're left jobless, but sometimes it's because we on their own couldn't have that courage. Or sometimes somebody leaves a person in a relationship and it feels devastating, but it's the greatest gift they ever got, because on their own they were afraid to leave that relationship. And here's Hashem nudging them and saying, here, you're not able to do it on your own. I'm going to have you fired. It's going to feel painful for you, but now you're going to be in a much better spot because you're afraid of this unknown. So really being able to push ourselves out of stuck situations, out of stuck places that are unhealthy, in order to get to somewhere, and not being afraid of Aretz Asher Eka, and knowing that Hashem will show us the land, just like Hashem showed Avram when he left everything he knew. He left his father's place, right? Don't leave the things you're comfortable with. Leave your nature and leave your nurture, leave your environment, and go to the place and allow Hashem to show you something much, much greater than you yourself can even imagine, even if you can't picture it, right? And just picture, if you can, Hashem holding Avram, bringing him across the desert to the land of Eretz Yisrael, right? To the land of our people, to the land of holiness, land of Kedusha, and to the life that Avram Avinu had after becoming the father of the multitudes of nations, being the founder. Who could have imagined that Avram would now be the forefather, looking down at his millions of Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael, in his land? He could never have imagined that. But what he did know is that he can let go and trust Hashem, because Hashem is the one who created the entire world, which he discovered on his own. So what we can do is just let go and trust, and it's easier said than done. But from this, we can learn to just trust and let Hashem guide us to where we're going to go and lean into that journey. That's what Lech Lecha is, that journey. We just have to be willing to journey, to keep moving, to keep traveling. And that's what marks us as a Jewish nation. And that's why this first conversation with Hashem and Avram is so pivotal. It's being willing to journey, being willing to go into the unknown, and know that there you'll achieve your greatest self. Because wherever you are, if you're leaving it, it's because it served you well until now, but now it's time to achieve something even greater. Okay. That was message from this first conversation between Hashem and the first Jew. That was message number 5, fear of the unknown. Okay, one more short one is the word ar'eka. It says Hashem will take you al ar'etz asher ar'eka. This is so beautiful. Before Hashem say you can divide ar'eka to ar'e bicha, that I will show, not only that I will show you, but I will show ar'e bicha, that I will show in you, that I will reveal inside of you. Where am I taking you? I'm not just taking you, Avram, to a land that I will show you, but I'm going to take you and every person on this journey of Lech Lecha who follows and goes along the journey of Hashem showing him where to go, that I will reveal inside of you. I'm going to show this Lech Lecha, go to yourself. If you can let go and leave everything behind, I'm going to bring you to the land that are Becha. Where is that greatness going to be revealed? Where is Eretz Yisrael revealed? Becha, in you. That's so powerful, right? The true destination is going to be inside of you because of the journey that you took. That when you can let go and travel on faith that Hashem knows where you're going, the real place you're going to get to is going to be in you, not the destination, because the destination doesn't matter. So la'aretz asher eka, it's like it doesn't matter where you're going, because if you can succumb to the journey, then really what you realize is that the real destination is the journey. It's the pitfalls along the way. It's the struggles along getting to where you get to, right? The end goal sometimes is where you thought you were going to get to, but what you really got is all the things along the way that got you until that you got on the way of getting there. So that I'll reveal in you, that I will show in you the journey, the destination. So deep, so deep. Okay, the last one, the seventh message from this pasuk of Lech Lecha, the last one for today that we're going to discuss. There's thousands more in the Meforshim. The last one is Lech Lecha is a command to just keep moving forward and just to keep journeying in life. And even if we reach the place where we're comfortable, we're like, oh, I made Aliyah a few months ago, right? I'm in Eretz Yisrael. I got there. It's like, no, your journey is not over. Nice try. Don't think you're done. Just because you found your home, just because you found your last physical flight journey, hopefully, and you'll make it in Eretz Yisrael, your journey isn't done. Your journey is never finished. Lech Lecha is a continuous message that we're mahalchim, that we are halacha. It comes from the word mahalech, to keep going. To keep halacha means to always move. Halacha challenges us to move forward and to challenge us and to journey all the time. Even if we're in Eretz Yisrael physically, and even if we found our forever home in Eretz Yisrael, right? That doesn't mean we're done journeying. We're going to keep traveling, and traveling doesn't mean leaving a country. Traveling means saying, what's my next journey right now, right? Where am I achieving next, right? And let me be open to whatever Hashem has to give me, so I can see where that journey is, right? Let me open myself up and say, Hashem, where are you taking me next? And when I can open up with that question, say, Hashem, where do you want me to go next? I'll be open to so many messages in my life, so many people Hashem puts me in my life, so many opportunities Hashem is putting in my life to say, this is where I want you to go next. This person is offering you this learning program, this learning opportunity to challenge yourself, to study this. You're never too old. Moshe Rabbeinu became the leader of the Jewish people when he was in his 80s. He started to become a leader. So there's never an age where you could say, oh, you know what, I've done my whole life, now I'm retiring. Retiring is not something that we do in Judaism. Just because you retire from a job doesn't mean you don't have a journey, or saying, well, what's my next journey, Hashem, right? What do you want me to do now? Should I study something? Should I take on something new? Should I open a new business? Should I open a new organization, a nonprofit, whatever it is? We're never done journeying. And the real message in this week's Parsha is that we're supposed to keep moving and leaving our comfort zone, which is our comfort home, our Beis Avicha, right? The comfortable places in our nature. We have to keep challenging our nature and keep leaving Lech Lecha. We have to always leave Artzacha, keep leaving your nature. When you've grown your nature and then you stressed yourself and now you become more generous, you have to keep growing your nature. If I am a stingy person, right, or whatever, I always challenge myself, try to challenge myself when someone asks me for money, to give a little bit more than I was going to give initially. That if I was naturally going to give this much, to give a little bit more than that. And then when that becomes comfortable me, to give more than that. To challenge ourselves to keep growing our nature, to keep challenging our environment, to say just because I challenge society's values until now, and society told me this is important, it doesn't mean that that ends. And say, well, what new things am I subscribing to in society's values? That are they really true? Are these really valuable? Are these true values to me? Or are these just voices that I'm hearing from society that I've absorbed that are valuable to me? We have to keep doing this growth process over and over again. It never ends. But a lot of times the journey feels like we're moving backwards. A lot of times in life we're like, I'm not moving forward, I'm slipping back. And I will be the first one to say that I feel like this almost every day, where I say to like my husband or my friend that I feel like I can't move forward. Like I'm working on this, I'm being more organized, I'm being on time to this shiur for 2 years, and today I felt like I'm moving backwards. Like not only did I not come on time, I came later than last week. And it feels really, really hard to move backwards when I'm trying to move forward. It's something that I'm literally working on for 31 years to be on time, and sometimes it feels like I'm sliding backwards instead of moving forwards. And I am sliding backwards, and I'm not. But journeying doesn't mean that we have to move forwards. Journeying means we know as a Jewish nation that our journey in the desert took us backwards many times. So journeying doesn't always have to mean moving forwards. In the journey, you sometimes move backwards very often. Now I know who you are. In this journey of life, moving backwards is still movement, right? Water, if you go on like traveling and hikes in Israel, water that's moving, even if it's moving backwards, it's fresh, it's clear. Water that stays in one place is much smellier and more toxic and poisonous than water that's moving backwards. It's much more toxic to stay in your comfort, cushy zone, to stay where you feel comfortable, than to move backwards. Moving backwards is because you're trying to move, is still more valuable than just staying in one spot. So if you're journeying and it's taking you backwards, that's fine, because that's part of what journeys are. Sometimes even in flights in Israel, flights internationally, sometimes you go around to right? You go in other places to get to where you need to get to, not just stopovers, because I don't know, someone was showing me that like the way that the flight maps work is that like you're working with I don't know, what? The jet stream, right? Like where, I don't know, but like sometimes you don't fly straight, you fly around because it will, not because of gas, but like because of someone who flies more tell me, but it ends up saving you time because of the winds and because of the way that the circumference of the world works, basically, like the way of the arc of the world. But sometimes we don't understand why we're going backwards and forwards. That's not for us to figure out. What we're supposed to know is that we're journeying, and if Hashem's journey for us takes us backwards, that's okay. That's part of our journey, and maybe we'll learn from that. Maybe today I'll learn from my backwards journey something so valuable. Maybe, we don't know why we weren't worked backwards, but this message we see in this week's Parsha more than ever, that our journey sometimes takes us backwards, and that we shouldn't give up and stop journeying, because we should still be pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. And we see in this week's Parsha that Hashem's telling Avram to go to the land that I'll show you, which in the end he finds out is Canaan, because we see in the pasuk that it says, "Vayetzu lelechetz arta Canaan," and they went towards Canaan. Vayavo arta Canaan, and they arrived in Canaan, right? Canaan, which is now Eretz Yisrael, which was then taken from shame, conquered by shame from the Canaanites. So we see that, so as she's trying to get to Canaan, and what happens right after he gets there, he's traveling southward to get to Yerushalayim, and then suddenly there's a hunger, and he goes to Egypt, right? It's like, well, like it seems like this is the opposite of the journey that she was supposed to go on to Yerushalayim, and then when he's about to get to his destination, he has to go now make a detour totally down to Egypt again, right? And he might be frustrated, and this was actually Avram's fourth test. Avram's fourth test. In this week's Parsha, we have the third test, which was leaving everything that he knew to go somewhere he didn't know. And the fourth test was, here he knew that Hashem was taking him to Eretz Yisrael, and this test was if he's going to question that the second he gets to Eretz Yisrael, there's a hunger and he has to leave. Is he going to question the journey that Hashem took us on? Maybe this is not real. Maybe this is not the actual place Hashem wanted me to go to, right? If the second I get here, there's a hunger and I have to leave. Is that part of the test? Is this like saying that am I supposed to leave? Am I not supposed to leave? And Avram being able to know that part of the journey is maybe leaving and going to Mitzrayim, and that might be part of this journey, that it doesn't have to be linear, it doesn't have to be in one way straight. This is the journey of Hashem, that I don't know where it's taking me. That was passing the next test. That was his next test that he passed. And then even in this journey, when he's in Eretz Yisrael, he has to fight a war to save his nephew from 4 kings. It's never restful. It's not like here's a journey and you got there, now it's time to rest. Along the way, there's wars he has to fight, right? There's famines he has to fight. His wife is abducted. There are so many. And then even when Hashem promises him after the war with Lot that he's gonna be, this is amazing that I just clicked, that Hashem promised him that he's gonna show him the stars. Your children are gonna be like the stars, because he said, I'm gonna bless you. He's like, I don't need all this wealth. I don't have anyone to give it to. Who's going to inherit it? Who's gonna get me this land? That was another test of Avram. He's saying, I'm gonna give you this land for you and your descendants. And Hashem promised him this, and he's 90 years old when Hashem promised him this, and for 10 years, he still didn't have children. 10 more years, right? He's getting closer to 100, and he doesn't stop to question Hashem and say, Hashem, like, you just promised me, like, clock's ticking, my wife's 90. He was joyful when Hashem told him, and he just waited for that thing to be fulfilled. 10 years. Imagine someone promises you something, and 10 years later, it's still not there, and the fact that Avram still had perfect faith. So to know that just because we have a goal and we have an end goal, we know this is the place I'm meant to get to, the process sometimes takes much longer than we thought, right? We all have a timeline. We know what Hashem wants for me to grow a family, right? Hashem wants for me to do this, and this is what I'm meant to be. This is my journey in life. I see that this is where Hashem is taking me. Why is it taking so long? The time span is also not in our control. Hashem knows best exactly how long it's supposed to take and when it's supposed to take, and when it happened was exactly when it was meant to happen. And being able to submit to that and to know that the journey is not going to be straight. And even when Hashem is telling us, this is where I'm taking you, it might not be directly there. There might be detours, and it might take a lot longer than we anticipated or wanted. And being able to succumb to that timeline and to know that Hashem has the ultimate plan, destination that we don't get to see. And on that way, we'll learn so much more value. We'll have that, sometimes people look back and they're like, I got married, even though it was when I was 38 or 35 or 40. I see now that I had to be that age in order to appreciate this marriage, or to find this person who wasn't there where I was there yet. We don't know why we have to wait. Sometimes that person wasn't able to meet me yet where I was at, or there's so many reasons that we sometimes get to see and sometimes we don't. Okay, so we still have to push ourselves beyond our comfort zone, even if it feels like we're moving backwards. And in my personal journey of trying to be more organized, come on time more, do things every single year that I do sometimes the same programs or similar programs year after year, and every year I say, next year I'm going to be more on time. Next year we're going to advertise this 2 months before instead of a week before, right? And I tell this to myself, and I challenge myself, and I push myself, and sometimes I'm like, it's Rosh Hashanah again, or it's Hanukkah again, and again it's a week before, and I still don't have this figured out, and it feels sometimes like I'm coming in circles or I'm moving backwards. But to sometimes really think about it and say, wait a minute, maybe in certain areas I made backwards, but there was so much growth I made along the way. And we'll stop, and my husband and I will reflect, and we'll notice so many ways that even though physically I might be like, yes, it's a week before, and we still are advertising 1 week before, but look how calm we are. We got this done before, and we are so much more level-headed, and look how much we grew along the way, and the process of getting here was so much more enjoyable and empowering than it was last year. So we have to appreciate the place that we've gotten on the journey. We may have gotten to places that it wasn't the goal that we had, but along the way we grew so much, and we really do appreciate and notice the growth that happened, and the way that we do things differently this time, and the way that we look at it differently, and maybe we don't have to do it that much in advance. Maybe this is just how we do it, right? Maybe it's making peace with the way that we do things. Maybe we have other priorities, right? So along the way, you learn things that you really have to stop and say, well, what have I journeyed? Maybe I didn't get to the place I wanted to, but I got to other places along the way as well. Which thought should I end off with today? Okay, so that was the last command, to move, even if it means like we're moving backwards. And to Avram, to know that Avram's test was knowing that that Hashem is still showing in the place, even though he has to move backwards, and not to question that he's moving backwards to Egypt along the way, because he's still going to the land Hashem showed him. Okay, now in this beautiful, in this detour where Avram is going to where Hashem showed him to, and then suddenly he gets there and there's a hunger and he has to go down to Egypt. We see so many parallels between Avram's journey to Egypt and the Jewish people's descent, his descendants' descent to Egypt years later. It's Avram's journey, Avram and Sarah's journey to Egypt mirrors our generation, our journey to Mitzrayim as a nation hundreds of years down the line. So when Avram gets to Mitzrayim, this is really crazy question. He says he looks at his wife, this Pasuk Yates, he says, it says there was a hunger and Avram goes down, and it says when they're getting close to Mitzrayim, Avram says to Sarai, his wife, Hine na yadati ki isha yifas ma'aretz. Now I see that you're gorgeous. Do you know how old Sarah was when he said that? She was in her 60s. She was in her late 60s, which is so beautiful, so powerful, that she was like her desirability, her beauty was so far beyond age, right? And that's so empowering to women of all ages. That Sarah in her 60s, he says, now I see that you're beautiful. And the Rashi's different examples says he always knew she was beautiful, but now he says, we're going to a country that people here are not used to someone who's as beautiful as you, and they're corrupt people and they're bad people, and they're going to take you, if they know that I'm your husband, they're going to kill me because they're going to want you, right? They're going to kill me because I'm in the way. I'm just collateral damage. So please, he says, tell them, this is the craziest pasuk. He says that they're going to see you, that you're gorgeous, and they're going to kill me to have you. So instead, he says, say that you're my sister, so that they'll take you, and also he doesn't say so that they'll let me live. He says, so that they'll give me gifts, so that they'll give me gifts because I'm your brother, right? And they want to win over my sister, and so that I'll live. So that I'll have gifts and live. So the Mepharshim say, why doesn't he need the gifts? Why isn't it enough to say, you're saying my sister so that I'll be spared? Why the gifts, right? That's Avraham Avinu, our father, that he wants his wife to be taken and to lie that she's a sister, so that they give him gifts, not just so that he could survive. So obviously there's a lot more going on than just wanting gifts. There's a lot of answers. Pshat says that Hashem told him that he's going to go down and he's going to become wealthy, that he's going to become wealthy in Eretz Yisrael, he's going to make him wealthy. And Avram and Sarah knew that this going down to Egypt was in order to become wealthy, that Hashem was detouring them in order to get the wealth, that this hunger wasn't by chance. But that's one level. On an even deeper level than that, so that's why they said, okay, this is why we're here, so maybe this is the way that if you go with them, they'll give me gifts, and then this is how we'll get our wealth. And Sarah went along with it. Obviously she agreed to it, and she said, okay, this is what Hashem's plan is for us. But then it's much more deep than that. Chassidus says something crazy, that Avram and Sarah knew that they're going to have descendants who are going to also, because of hunger, right? Yosef and his brothers went down to Egypt, and that's how they ended up in Egypt. And they're also going to be stuck in Egypt, right? In Galus, Hashem told him later on, but they knew already that they're going to have descendants that are going to be stuck in Egypt for 3 generations until they come back to Eretz Yisrael. And Hashem promised him that they're going down to a land that they will not know, and they will come up with tremendous, and I promise you, don't worry, they'll come up with tremendous wealth, right? That wealth wasn't just the materialistic wealth. Avram could have said, the question that is asked by the Medrash and Gemara, Avram said, don't send them down and don't give them wealth, right? They don't want to go down and suffer as slaves in order to be wealthy. That's not worth it for anyone. Don't give me your bite and don't give me your honey, right? Don't bite me and then give me your honey. Don't send them down. So Hashem said, no. The deeper message here, and Avram understood, is not to just become wealthy. It's not like a pacifying gift, like, don't worry, they're going to come up wealthy. This is part of Hashem's intention in creating the entire world. We're talking about Hashem's divine plan for the world is to elevate the physical materialism of the world and to elevate the sparks that before Hashem made our world. We learned that Hashem made previous worlds, and there were sparks of godliness that shattered and fell into the lowest places in our world. And now our job as a Jewish nation is to find those godly sparks and to elevate them. And those were found in materialism. And so Hashem said, your nation, your children are going to be the ones to go down into this land and retrieve the sparks that are found in the wealth. And they will take all this wealth back with them, not just the physical wealth, but in the physical wealth, they'll be redeeming all of the spiritual wealth, all of the kedusha, and all of the holiness that is trapped within this physical wealth. They're going to bring that up with them out of this land that they will come up from. And Avram and Sarah knew this. They knew that their people are going to have to go down and they're going to have to come out with wealth. And that's why we'll see later on that the Jewish people were like, they're being freed and the power is trying to get them to go. And Hashem begs them and says, please take everything out with you. And they're like, we just want to leave. We have enough wealth. We don't need to take every single silver wealth that's in every Mitzri's house. But Hashem says, no, that's why you were here to begin with. You need to be able to take all that, because in that is the spiritual sparks of holiness that have been trapped here from the beginning of creation, that you need to bring up into the possession of holiness, to use to build a Mishkan, to use to build the Beis HaMikdash, and to bring it to the realm of holiness, to fulfill the intention, or one of the stages and intention of, and the prerequisites for getting the Torah. Because before we can get the Torah, we have to take out these sparks of holiness from the realm of Tumah that they were in when they fell and the world began, when the world was created. So Avram and Sarah knew that their children, so now let's go back now. So Avram and Sarah know that their children or their descendants are going to go down into this land. They're going to be in this depraved land, and they wanted to pave the way. And it says that Avram and Sarah were paving the way for us. And when you look at the story of Avram and Sarah, you see how many parallels there are. First of all, they went down to Mitzrayim from a hunger. We went down to Mitzrayim from a hunger. And they also had they left with wealth. Avram and Sarah left with wealth. So what happened in this story? So Avram and Sarah go down. He says, say you're my sister. So they say she's a sister, and they say this woman is beautiful. That says that they sang her praises to Paro. They said that she's fit for a king. So Paro took her, thinking she's the wife, and Sarah refused any of his advances. He tried to seduce her. He offered her wealth and everything she wanted, and Sarah refused to his advances even for a moment. And in fact, the Malach says that the pasuk says that he became that he and his entire palace became smote with a terrible disease because of her. Because she told the Malach to strike them, or because of her steadfastness. And then he sent them away with tremendous wealth. He said, why don't you tell me she's your wife? Take her and go. And he sent them with tons of wealth, and he told his people to escort him and to protect them as they left. And that mirrors the journey of our journey thousands of years later. First of all, we left with tremendous wealth. We came down to get food for hunger, and we left with Paro escorting us, sending us out with wealth, and saying, get out of here, right? Not just that he didn't tell Avram, stay as long as you want, I won't take her. He's like, get out of here. Go back to where you came from. I don't want you here. You're bringing afflictions upon me. Same, right? Thousands of years later, his people brought afflictions upon Paro, all of his household, and he's saying, just get out of here. Here's our food. Here's our money. Here's our wealth. Just get out of here. And he escorted them and make sure that they're gone, right? Such a similar way. And the most beautiful part is that it happened. It says that he knew that the wealth had to come al yadech, through Sarah. That Abraham knew that the wealth that they would get from Paro, that they had to come here, because Avram promised Avram personally that he's going to be very wealthy. I'm going to make you a wealthy man. They knew it had to be from coming down to Mitzrayim. And he said, Laman yitav li ba'avurech. It's going to be because of your merit. The wealth is not going to become because of me. It's going to become because of you, Sarah. V'chaysa nafshi, and my soul will live biglalech. My soul will also be elevated biglalech, because of your merits, because of you, Sarah, right? And it was that the Shem sent them because of Sarah's merits. And what does it say when we left Mitzrayim hundreds of years later? On whose merit were we meritorious to leave Mitzrayim? Because of the merit of the Jewish women. That just like by Avram, they paved the way, that Sarah's commitment to not letting Paro even touch her, and not mixing up. And the Jewish women who were raised, it says that when they killed the boys, they took the Jewish women and tried to seduce them into their way of life, to say, we're not forcing you to do anything. We're going to give you the education. We're going to give you everything your children want. Just give them to us. And the women who wouldn't give their children to the Egyptians, they wouldn't even go even close to the Egyptian culture, even though they were promised all of the physical, materialistic desires that they could have had, and they didn't give in or budge, because the women held on to their dress, they held on to their names, and they held on to their emunah, and they didn't give in to the Egyptian men who seduced them and who tried to take them with promises of freedom from slavery and freedom from whatever, and they held on so fast. In their merit, we were redeemed. In the merit of the women who trade true to their husbands and tried to continue, right? It says that they seduced their husbands under the apple trees. In their merit, we left. So just like in the merit of Sarah, Avram was given all of his wealth, and he said, I know that my wealth will come from you. Also, years later, he knows that the wealth of the Jewish people that they'll become from Mitzrayim will become from the Jewish women as well. It's just amazing to see that the Maisa Avos, we're told by the Chaman, the Maisa Avos Siman Labanim, that the deeds of our fathers are a siman for us. So if the Jewish people held on to that and said, wait a minute, this is not the first time we're here. Let us look back to our father Abraham and Sarah and what they did to and to get through this time, and that will be our guiding post. And that's how we should be living now also in this week's Parsha, that this is a timeless message, that when we find ourselves in a state of being stuck in a Mitzrayim, which means a physical Mitzrayim, which is a Meitzar, which means a narrow state in our life, that we can look to our fathers and to our mothers and to see how they got through it, to look at our avos and use it as a simon and say, well, we're not the first people to be in a narrow state. Our fathers were always in these states, right? Avram was journeying backwards and feeling like he's going back. What did Avram do? What was his journey? What did Hashem do for him then? And this is our signpost of how to get out of our struggles. So if we're stuck, just look in the Torah and see that our struggles are not the first. We're not the first people to struggle, right? We're a struggling nation. We're a nation that journeys backwards and forwards, and it's not easy, and we don't know where we're going. And if we can hold on to what the messages that Hashem gave our fathers and how they got through it, then we could get through our journeys as well. So we really have to look into the Torah, specifically in these parshios, when we're living with our avos every single week, right? And that's what the Rebbe says actually about Lech Lecha, why it's considered a joyful parsha, because Bereshis is joyful, the creation of the world, but then it's sad with the destruction of the world by Noach and Adam. And then, Noach is destructive, the world is destroyed, and then it's happy at the end because Avram was born. But Lech Lecha, every single day we get to live with our father, with Abraham and Sarah. So it's a day of joy when we can live and learn from every word of this parsha. We can learn and live with it. So the Ma'aseh Avasim Labanim was just the paving of the way. It's just amazing to see that they paved the way for our coming down to Mitzrayim, and also for the future redemption from this Meitzar that we're in, this narrow state that we're in, to also know that the Avos have already paved the way out for us, right? And we can look at their journey and see the Lech Lecha, that we just have to every day challenge ourselves to keep journeying, just like we have to journey out of Mitzrayim towards towards getting the Torah. We just have to keep going to wherever Hashem shows us. And as hard as it is, we have to wake up every day and say Lech Lecha, right? Every day this week, let's wake up and say Lech Lecha, and next week, right? In order to get to my highest self, I have to be able to leave all the levels of Artzecha, Moladetecha, Mebeis Avicha, and then that's not even the hardest part, not to just be able to leave behind my values that I thought I value, not only to leave my connection to materialism, not only to leave my natural tendencies, my natural urges, not only to leave my boxes of intellect that makes sense, that it's like logically, right? This is what makes sense for me to go. Hashem, there's nothing, I can't have kids, right? Avram said, I logically can't have kids, but yet he was able to, in this week's Parsha, Hashem said, leave logic, right? Just because logic and astrology say something, I'm beyond that, right? Go to the land I can show you. The hardest thing is being able to go to the land Asher Eka. The hardest thing, I think, is to say that Hashem is going to take me, first of all, to a level higher than I can ever reach on my own. That even Avram Avinu is limited in how high he can get without Hashem's help. And to know that I need Hashem. I'm never going to get past this struggle without Hashem. I'm not. There's only a level that I can do, right? In every mitzvah that we do, right? And I'll give an example of this is woman shir. I'm a balanit in the mikveh. And there's a lot of women, even myself sometimes, who get like so frustrated with like being a little bit OCD. I'm using the term loosely about preparations for the mikvah. I'm like, did I do this exactly? And did I do this? And we have to have a lot of elements of letting go and saying, I'm human, right? My human level can only take me to a certain level. I'm going to do my best job as a human. I'm going to give it half an hour, 10-hour prep max. And after that, you're just going to say, Hashem, you take me, because there's only a level I can get to. And being able to, in everything of our life, just say, I'm going to do my best. I'm human, right? I can't be the perfect parent every single day. It's just not possible. I'm just going to do my best, but I'm human. I'm going to scream, right? I might scream. I might feel like I need to scream. I might feel like I want to do terrible things. And then I'm just going to say, Hashem, I'm human. You need to take me, right? Please, Hashem, I'm leaning on you to take me to the land that you can take me to, because I can only get to X until on my own, but Hashem can take me into infinity, right? So we really need to be able to wake up every day and say, Hashem, where are you taking me today, right? Where Hashem, I don't, on my own, I can really go very limitedly right now. I have zero energy to get anywhere today, but let me go and see, where does Hashem want me to get to today? What's the journey I'm supposed to get to today? So l'chaim, to being able to let go and let Hashem carry us to our journey, being able to know that it's not easy to do that, but when we can not know where we're going and know that we don't know where we're going and only Hashem knows where we're going, that's when we're truly traveling to where we need to get to. It's very, very hard, but let us have the emunah and the faith to be able to know that we have, that Avram bequeathed to us. Avram, one of the things that we inherited from Avram Avinu, was not necessarily his wealth. We inherited Eretz Yisrael from Avraham Avinu, and we inherited the chesed in our souls from Avraham Avinu, and we inherited the emunah. Every single trait of Avram, to just follow Hashem blindly, to know wherever Hashem will take him, we have that capacity within us. So if we feel like it's beyond our reach, Avram was a tzaddik, who am I? We have the capacity. We learned that we inherited this emunah of our fathers to just be a chariot, to say, Hashem, I'm a vessel of light. Where do you want me to go, right? How do you want me to be your vessel of light today? Wherever it is, even if it means that I'm home, with sick kids, being sick, in that's where Hashem wants me to go today, so that's where I'll go, right? Somehow Hashem knows that this is a journey I need to get to today. So let us all lean into knowing that Hashem knows where we need to get to, knows the detours we need to take. And I'll end with this. The Medrash says about Avram Avinu's journeys and all the detours along the way to get to where he had to get to. I'm like, Hashem wants to get to Israel. Why did he take him to Egypt? And the Medrash says that like a spice box, that you have to shake it in order for the smell to get to all the corners of the room, right? Or like a diffuser, you have to shake it. So also, by a besamim, right? Before we smell, why do we shake the spices? Because when we shake it, the smell gets further, right? The smell gets out of it. And Avram Avinu, in order for his message to get to all the corners of the world, in order for the message or for Avram to get to this highest self, to spread as far as he could, he had to be shooken. He had to shake him first. So Hashem shook him to get to all the parts. The shaking is what feels like we're detouring, we're going the wrong way. It's like, I made a wrong turn here, I'm supposed to go here. It's like, no, if you go here, the smell's not going to go straight. You have to shake the smell around. You have to sometimes go here and go along the way and go on these tangents in order to get to the deepest depths of our lives. And the mashal given by the Rebbe for this is so deep. It says that the Gemara, the Talmud Bavli, you're learning Gemara on a pasuk, right? And the Gemara is asking a question about this thing, and then to answer it, it's like, but what if there's a tangent, and then on that tangent there's another tangent, and you're like, why are we here? We're asking a question about this pasuk. Why are you telling me a story about somebody once because this word reminded you of that person? Like, it's like, where are we even going with this? Whenever I'm trying to learn Gemara, I'm like, I don't even remember where I started. I spent all my brain power trying to like connect everything back. Okay, so we started here, and now we're here, and now we're here, and now we're here, and then like finally we get back to the beginning, right? And it's not just a tangent. And when you really appreciate Gemara, when someone really appreciates Gemara, they realize that tangent that they took shed so much depth on the original text, and they realize how much depth there is in the original text, how much meaning there was, and how much weight there was. It ends up shedding so much light. And in our lives as well, sometimes we want to just answer a certain question, but to get to that answer to that question, we need to have a lot of tangents that feel like, why? Like, I just want to get there, right? Like, this is where I'm trying to get to. Why am I in this tangent? Why am I going so far off the course? Like, why do I need a 3-year pause in my life if I'm just trying to get to here, right? And it's so frustrating sometimes. And it's like, why can't things just be easy? Why can't I just like have a kid, right, that just goes to school and does the things all the other kids do? Why do I need like this therapy, and then that therapist recommends that therapist and that hook? And it's like, I don't need a tangent off a tangent off a tangent. Just like, I just want to fix this one problem, right? There's this one issue with this kid, right? I don't need to have this like 4-year break to get there. But along the way, we learned that just like the Gemara, the Talmud Bavli teaches us, and the Yerushalmi is actually very linear. The Talmud Yerushalmi and Talmud Bavli, where did that develop? In Galus, in Bavel. Not when they were in their path in Eretz Yisrael. When they're in Galus, Bavel, they understood that we're not here by mistake in Bavel along the way. No, this is where we're meant to be. This is where the spices go into the corners, right? We're shaking it to get to the furthest. We're going to get our message so much deeper, and it's going to permeate every part of you. The smell, right? We're in the month of Cheshvan, which is the month of smell. The spirituality and the smell is going to permeate all parts of your soul when you shook it around first, when you got to all the tangents, when you spread it further first. And so the tangents in Bavli, and so in the Talmud that's developed in Yerushalayim, in the linear path, right? In the Kedusha path, there, it's not so tangential. It's like a question and answer. And we learn that when there's a discrepancy between Yerushalmi and Bavli, we go according to Bavli now. We go according to the Talmud Bavli. And that teaches us so much about the detours in our life and the frustrating detours in our life. We're like, oh, I don't want a 4-year wait for another doctor and another, like all these waits and detours just to get to like fixing one issue in my life. Or like, I just have this issue and I want it to be fixed. Like, I want to clear my ADHD. I want to like get it over it. I don't want it to be a 8-year process or a 31-year process, right? And when we realize that that's how the spice smell gets the furthest and resonates the furthest, when we're shaken up a little bit, the shaking up is not by chance, it's necessary, and it's how we get the deepest, and it's how we get the message to the deepest place it can get to. So if we can lean into that and stop being frustrated by the detours along the way, and saying that this journey and the length that it's taking and how long it took is just part of the journey that Hashem has for us, and knowing that that's just how it's always been, and that's what journeying means, that in Judaism we journey in a circular way, and we take a lot of steps back before we get forwards, and part of that, and only through, and then when we look back afterwards, we're like, wow, if I had just gone and to an appointment and said, here's this meds, your ADHD is cured, you would never have learned all the things you learned along the way. The frustration and the years that it took, and all the books you read, and all the podcasts you listened to, and all the conversations you had with friends crying, and all the things you learned about yourself along the way. You realize that through that detour journey, through that long journey that felt like a detour and that felt so frustrating, you uncovered the real wealth in your life, the friendships along the way, the relationships with yourself, the growth, the patience, and the skills and the understanding. And you didn't need that quick fix, like the one answer. You needed that long journey, and you needed all of the true wealth that you acquired, that the true wealth you get when you go down to Mitzrayim, right? That the true wealth you get when you have that long detour. And that's the wealth you acquire on the way. And we really can appreciate that more when we can lean into that, and we can say, listen, Hashem knows where I need to go to, and let me look for that wealth in that, and say, well, I'm here, there must be wealth. So when we get to Mitzrayim, he's like, listen, there must be something great Hashem has for me. So it's going to be you, because you're the woman, right? You're going to figure it out the most. So like, let's just cut to the point and say, okay, listen, Sarah, we know how this works. We're in the wrong place. That means we're going to come out with something greater. We know how this game goes, right? So this has to be through you, clearly, right? So you're just going to be the one who has to do it. Just leave me out of this. I'm not, right? Leave me aside. You figure this out, and then we'll have the tremendous wealth. So if we can stop and say, listen, let me get to the point, right? I'm here on this detour. It's taking a long time. Let me just search for the wealth here already, right? Where's the wealth going to be? It's going to be through the intuition of the feminine, right? It's going to be through the feminine intuition. Let me find that feminine intuition and see, like, where is that strength, and where is that growth going to come from, and look for the wealth in it instead of being frustrated. Then we'll cut the pain, because the pain sometimes comes in the suffering from being frustrated at where we're at instead of just searching for the wealth in it. So l'chaim, I went on very long. L'chaim to our journeys, to being able to appreciate every moment, to only having good detours that bring us so much wealth and so much growth, to finding the answers, and to really that in every journey that Hashem takes us on, in every detour, that Hashem should give us so much wealth in that each Mitzrayim that we're in every narrow state that we're in every detour, that we should be able to come in searching for the jewels and the gems that Hashem has for us. And this wealth doesn't mean only physical wealth, but also physical wealth. We should come out physically wealthy, and in that physical wealth, the point of it and the real greatness of the physical wealth should be the growth and the spiritual wealth and the gifts that it gives us in our meaning, the meaning in our life. L'chaim.